Well, greetings and welcome everyone to another of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth show, where we're in powerful conversations for living your best life. I'm Velan Hawkins, your host, and today I am with the amazing Kia Nesmith, and we're going to be exploring the topic, the law of motion. When an outside force demands you pay attention to your health. So let me just tell you a little bit about Kia and why she's here with us today, and the fact that she's got a wealth of information, and we're talking on a topic that we haven't actually explored yet here on the show. So I'm excited about this. And welcoming our guest, Kia Nesmith is a women's health empowerment coach, a founder of Simply Wellness, and dedicated to helping professionals and entrepreneurs help or develop their health, balance, and fulfillment while experiencing fun, joy, and contentment as they juggle ever-increasing responsibilities in work and in life. How many of us are in that space? Kia brings 2 decades of combined experience in, and I love this, functional health, psychology research, and counseling to support individuals in creating whole life health that allows them to thrive in all aspects of their lives. As a coach, a workshop leader, and a national award-winning speaker, she's passionate about bringing a whole life health transformation to others that will turn into positive impact in their health, so that they can have a positive impact in their communities, and we all can help heal the world. So thank you, Kia, for being here with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. It's really such a joy and such a pleasure to get to have a conversation like this with you, because I think it's just so important. I call these kinds of things like the hidden pieces of our health, right? The ones that we don't often talk about, we don't often think about, and yet they are integral in us having success when it comes to our health. So I'm very excited to be here.
Well, awesome. I am just so much more thrilled to have you here, because life is a journey. I mean, we're all on it, and we all have our experiences along it. And most of what we pay attention to are those health experiences, right? And so do us a favor and tell us a little bit about your journey. Tell us whether it was a health thing that got you focused in this area, and just a little bit about what the passion that has drawn you to become a health and empowerment coach.
Yeah, I love that. So I think my story is very multifaceted. It wasn't sort of a one occurrence and bam, I was on the path. It kind of came from a lot of different areas. You know, part of it is I watched my mom go through chronic health conditions, autoimmune, from a very young age. I was 5 when she first got ill, and back in a time when doctors just didn't believe there was anything wrong with her. They thought it was all in her head and she should just, be cheerful and get better, kind of thing. And so I watched her go on her own journey of figuring out, well, how do I heal myself? Because nobody else is helping me heal. And that really impacted me. But as I went into the field of psychology and counseling, and started to see just how important it was when I was on my own health journey, battling depression, battling being overweight, right? And just feeling really sluggish, that just knowing all the things wasn't enough. And I could easily stop myself from doing what I knew I was supposed to do, right? And so using the tools from kind of positive psychology and behavior change research and healthy aging research, and really utilizing that as a way to say, oh, this is a huge piece that so many of us are missing when we're on a health journey. And everybody's on a health journey, whether we want to be on a health journey or not, right? Like, as human beings, we are automatically on a health journey. It's just whether or not we want to pay attention to it or not. And so I really got into the work that I'm doing now kind of through that avenue of just experiencing with myself how important it was to be looking at not just what I consider the four pillars of health, right? Your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep, and your stress. But in combination with that, looking at how do I get myself moving? How do I get myself kind of being resourceful, being consistent, and doing it in a way that doesn't feel like a chore? Because I'm a huge advocate that health should not be a chore, that it should be something that we get to enjoy. And I think it's possible for everybody because we all get to choose what our own health journey looks like. So that's really how I got into kind of what I do now. And I just adore it. I absolutely love working with women who feel like they lost fun in their life. And it's just, they're slogging through day after day. They crash at the end of the night and then they wake up in the morning thinking, oh, I've got to do it again. Or they can't wait till Saturday, right? When they can turn off their alarm or whatever it is. And getting to work with them and helping them shift that so that every day can be magical and every day can spark joy and every day can just feel good, even when it's stressful, even when it's chaotic, even when we have a million and one things to do, right? It doesn't exclude the fact, like we don't have to give up our fun. We don't have to give up our joy or our peace or our contentment, right? Just because life is crazy. And so that's been it's a really fulfilling thing to do. And I love working with women that way.
That is awesome. I love that as well. That, you can feel the energy when you're in that space that, your passion comes through and your heart for the people that you're working for actually gets to come through. And I love what you talked about when you said about, being in motion and moving. And, there are a lot of us who actually believe that, like you just described, I'm doing all this stuff. At the end of the day, I've been in motion all day. At the end of the day, I'm done. And that kind of leads us into our conversation today, talking about the law of motion. And, there are various aspects of that. But let's talk about right now, especially in light of how you introduced yourself and talked about your mother and some of the things that you felt that was an outside force demanding attention for her health, but it impacted you. Let's talk about the law of motion and how we can recognize what might be getting called into play as we're looking at our own lives.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell my clients that we are beings of physics, right? Physics applies to us both in terms of our body, but in terms of our life also, right? And so kind of the premise behind this, right? An object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest, unless an outside force exerts kind of influence over it, right? And we're very much that way, both in terms of habits, right? If we have consistent habits, we're going to continue with those habits, right? Whether it's sedentary, whether it's exercise, whether it's eating a certain way, whether it's good or bad sleep habits, right? Whatever our habits are will continue unless we exert an outside force on those habits to shift them. Similarly, our life will continue how it's going unless something exerts a force. And that can be a chronic condition, right? So we might just continue on our path. I call it heading towards your cliff edge, right? You can just be going, doing the same thing every day, not paying attention to what the possible repercussions are, the additional aches and pains that you're now feeling, a little extra fatigue that you have, the headache that you wake up with in the morning, right? You just assume they're kind of normal and it's okay until one day an outside force exerts itself in the form of an autoimmune disease, a chronic illness, some part of your body just shutting down and you fall off your cliff. And all of a sudden something has happened to you and you are blindsided. You don't know what that is, right? And I think that's really what happened to my mom. And then watching her figure out how to exert the right kinds of influence on her life and on her body, and doing all this research to figure out for herself what that looked like in terms of nutrition, in terms of how to care for her body, right? And all of those kinds of things. And so sometimes we have a big wake up call. And that's the only thing that gets us to pay attention and to exert a different force on our lives. But we don't have to wait for the big wake up call. We can actually exert that influence in advance so that we can not do that, right? Not have to go through that pain and that suffering and that just really difficult time that anyone with a chronic illness or autoimmune, right? I mean, you know what I'm talking about if you've ever experienced something like that. So it is really interesting how that law of physics, right, can exert on us in so many different ways. And we need to be paying attention so that it's exerting in a positive way in our lives and in our health, and not just taking us along for the ride.
That is so key. And I've often found myself in the conversation saying, there's certain things that ask us to wake up,
Mhm.
and there's certain things that knock us over to wake us up.
Yeah.
And I would like to say, nudge me versus knock me over. And there's so many people out there too that have stories that they've shared and that they want to share to help others not have to get knocked over, and really learn to recognize the messages that are coming to us. And, in preparing for our conversation, I did a little bit of research and found out that there was a recent publication that stated that 80% of all Americans, young and old, do not get enough physical activity. Yet when you talk to people, again, they're busy, they're doing this. I did my 10,000 steps today, but I'm still, something is off. What is the difference that we're talking about here in connecting health and healthy activity to activity that is busy activity that we may be construing as healthy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. So I think there's a couple things going on. I mean, there's sort of the busy activity that actually can be detrimental to you because all it is a heightened stress state that you're in constantly, right? And that's very different. That's raising your cortisol. It's something over 90% of all illness in the world is like you can draw that back to stress, right? That's where it comes from, is the overactive stress response in your body. Now, cortisol is not all bad, right? We need cortisol, and we need cortisol to be on the correct rhythm in our body. But for so many of us, it's not. It's just high, and it stays high all the time. So that's sort of one piece, I think, of what's going on, is it's the wrong kind of body state that you're in when you're in that kind of constant busy mode, right? The other piece that I think is really interesting, and this again draws on a lot of research, where there's really two pieces when you are looking at body movement or exercise. There's two totally different parts. They used to think it was two sides of the same coin, right? Either you had exercise or you were sedentary, right? One or the other. Well, it turns out they're actually completely different coins. So one is exercise, of actually getting some cardiovascular, stressing your body out in a good way, in a positive way. And again, for everybody that looks different, right? Depending on what else you have going on in your body, you may need to raise your heart rate a lot. Other people only can raise it a little bit until they heal other things and then get into the exercise, right? So it's different for everybody, but there's an exercise component that is important to our health. And that's when we're doing that positive exercise stress, whether that's through running or yoga or Tai Chi or cycling or rowing or a sport or whatever, right? So many options. The other piece is sedentary behavior, which is where the 10,000 steps come in, right? That sort of, I don't remember how many years ago now, 10 years ago or something, that became like the magic number, right? If you get your 10,000 steps in. And really what that says is if you're authentically getting 10,000 steps in, then you are not going to be classified as a sedentary individual, right? Because what they found is people could be couch potatoes, very sedentary, have an amazing exercise routine, and still have all of these negative health effects based on the fact that they weren't getting enough body movement. The flip side is also true. You can be active all the time in the sense that you are moving your body, right? Like a waitress is a great example. Someone who, is working in a restaurant and they're on their feet all the time, they're walking around, but unless you're doing heavy lifting or you're really getting your heart rate up, you're just moving, right? So the exercise component, that positive physical stress that we all need, is also not happening. So it's like you need to find that balance. We need both things. Everybody needs both things. And so often we focus on one or the other and we think we have it all under control, right? And we forget that it's actually multifaceted and that these are actually two separate things, right? It wasn't until about 10 years ago that they realized that they were two separate things and one would not suffice for both, right? And so it's interesting to look at it that way and then to look at your own life and think, okay, what do I do well? What do I maybe need to work on a little bit? How do I handle both of these aspects of body movement in my life? And, what do I need to kind of think about that?
You summed it up very well. And I think also pointed to my next question, which is, if you're looking at both things and you're focused on balancing them, and a lot of people are asking this, I don't like to walk all that much. I don't like to do this or whatever, and I venture to say some of it is excuses versus really not liking to do some of that stuff. Um, what's one of the best ways that you recommend we get started in, beginning this healthy physical activity?
Yeah, I love this question. I love this question because we as humans, this is one of those like human nature things that just, I think, is so fascinating. First of all, we like to think that we have to be perfect. And right, so that if we're going to embark on something like an exercise routine, we look up and we're like, okay, I need to work out, 3 to 5 times a week for at least a half an hour and get my heart rate up to this level. And, all of these kinds of things. I know so many people who do this. I will do this to myself if I'm not paying attention, right? And I come up with this amazing exercise routine and it's going to be a great plan. And then maybe it works for a couple of days, but within the first week, life gets busy, a meeting comes up, my child needs something, and I don't follow through with exactly what I was going to do. And pretty soon I've given up, right? It's like if we can't do it all, we just don't do anything. Because we have this idea of like, well, I got to go all in, right? And so, people will often ask me, well, what is the best form or balance of exercise? And my answer is always the same. It is the form of exercise that you will actually do. Like, let's start there, right? Mm-hmm. Because we are these physics beings, right? The laws of physics apply. When we start somewhere with something that is enjoyable to us, that will then influence and make more accessible other forms of exercise. Mm-hmm. It will open the doorway for us to do more things, for our body to feel better in more ways, right? Just because we started in one place, and allow yourself to start small. I was just talking to a client last week and she was beating herself up because she had made a plan to start going to the gym 3 times a week and she just wasn't getting there. And there were always excuses, right? Because we always have excuses. At any given moment of time, there are at least 100 different things that you could be doing with your time, right? Like, so of course we can always come up with reasons why we shouldn't go to the gym, or it'll happen tomorrow instead, or I really need to take care of this email or that phone call I need to make, or whatever it is, right? So we were talking and I'm like, okay, well, what's a step back from that, right? First of all, you don't have to go 3 times a week. Start with 1. And maybe if the gym just feels a little too inaccessible, and she was someone who actually loved the gym. That's always my first question too. Well, is this something you really enjoy? And yes, when she's in the routine, she really enjoys it. I'm someone, I hate a gym. You will never find me inside a gym. I just don't like it, right? I will exercise outside in the pouring rain, like whatever weather. I am so much happier outside, right? So we have to first find what's our happy place to get body movement. But that was authentically her happy place. And so we started to talk about, well, what are baby steps that can get you to the gym? What's the first step? If you block out a half an hour on your calendar and you get to that half hour and you think to yourself, I just can't do it. Great. Take 5 minutes. Walk down your driveway and collect the mail and walk back, right? Give yourself something. Walk outside, do 20 jumping jacks and walk back inside, right? Because as we put one foot in front of the other, kind of literally as well as figuratively, right? Then it starts to build that momentum. And all of a sudden the next day, walking down the driveway and do 10 jumping jacks felt really good. I'm going to do that again, right? And then a week later, it's not that big of a leap because now you're walking for 20 minutes, or now you're doing a hula hoop, or now you're putting on music and having a dance party. I mean, there's so many options for how we get good body movement and exercise, that going to the gym it's not as big of a stretch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just talked to her again yesterday and she's like, guess what? I made it to the gym and it felt so good because she gave herself permission to not be perfect. She gave herself permission to do something smaller instead of feeling like, well, if I can't go to the gym and work out for 45 minutes, it's not worth it, right? To flip that in our minds and say, no, even 5 minutes is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because next week it'll be 10. And the week after that, it'll be 15. And pretty soon your body will be in motion. You'll have that momentum behind you and you will find that you're actually doing it, right? And that it feels good to do it because it's not something you're forcing on yourself. It's something that's naturally coming, which is such a different experience, right? Such a different experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that was great. That was really good. I could totally identify. As a former fitness professional, I remember telling many who came to some of my classes, the hardest thing about being consistent is getting there to the gym. But once you're there, it's like you're in the groove. It's like the flow is there and you're just stepping into it. And but yeah, I could totally relate. And it is the laws of physics that kind of just demands so many things occur within us and around us. And I'm not even going to talk about the law of attraction, but this even plays into the law of attraction. You talked about doors open and things change. And I love the fact that springtime, people just naturally feel that kind of energy and flow pulling them out to take a walk or sit on the front steps or the back steps for a minute. But your idea of 10 jumping jacks, 20 jumping jacks, and then go back to what you're doing, you will feel the difference and it will feel better.
Yeah.
And, for those busy people, do you have a tool that you use that, we look at supporting ourselves with certain tools? What are some tools or your favorite tool that, is not something that we add to our to-do list, but something that will really help us to stay in this frame of mind and in the energy and, have our bodies say thank you to us.
Yes. So, when I talk about tools, I sort of think there's two categories. One is the mindset piece, right? So tools to help keep you in the mindset of you're worthy, right? You are beautiful, you are worthy, you deserve to have a body that feels good, right? You deserve to have a positive relationship with your body. And to kind of allow us to stay in that mindset. And my biggest thing for that is to just find something that you can give thanks for in your body every day, right? To be in a positive relationship with ourselves. So often we're very antagonistic with our body, and that prevents healing from happening. And it prevents shifts from happening in our health, right? That's what gets us stuck, is when we have that antagonistic relationship. So the kind of mindset piece I really like to offer people is just, how can you thank yourself today? How can you give thanks for your body? And that can be something, I don't have my phone on me, but that can be something like as simple as putting a kind of a daily reminder in your phone at some point in time. Maybe it's, before you put your phone away for the night. If that's like at 9:00 at night, you put in a little reminder that says, okay, 9 p.m., give thanks for my body. To just remind you to do that every day, right? It makes such a huge difference. And just sometimes it can be, I am thankful that my lungs are filling with oxygen. It doesn't have to be profound. It doesn't have to, just a little thing. So that's sort of the one side, the mindset side. For the physical side, the actual doing it piece, my big tip is to start small. So look at where you are right now. What is the next baby step you want to be taking? Just baby step, right? Baby steps, when we put them and stack them on top of each other, that's actually what produces sustainable change for the long term. If we try to go too far, too fast, I always say we can force ourselves to do something for a pretty short period of time, a few weeks, maybe even a month. That's pretty much our max, right? So you can go whole hog in something for a short period of time, but to create change that's actually going to last and stick with you and feel good, right? That's where baby steps come in. So what is the one baby step that you can start to do, whether that's on a daily basis or a weekly basis or just something, right? And then find a time that's consistent. There's so many different tools that you can use on how to actually put something new into your life without it feeling like you are adding on, right? That's a whole other topic. So we're not going to dive into that right now, but right, there's so many ways to do that. So just think to yourself, what is that one baby step that I can start to integrate now, right? It doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, I love the examples of like jumping jacks, right? Or a dance party, solo dance party in your living room or in your office or wherever it is, right? Things like that are like 5 minutes or less. Everybody can find time for it. Like you really can, because you're on your phone scanning like social media more than 5 minutes every day, right? You could take 5 of those minutes and instead move your body somehow. So there's definitely opportunity for short and sweet kind of things that you can start to implement. And then the snowball effect, right? They just get bigger all on their own.
Beautiful. I love that. And it's a great segue, the whole snowball effect, because it just builds, and in that building comes strength and just the whole perseverance is like, right there. And, Kia, many of our conversations here on the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show dive into the subject of using lifestyle and food as medicine. And we're talking about a lifestyle connection as it relates to movement and the laws of physics part of the laws of the universe impacting us. And I want to bring in the correlation to food because, again, exercise gets harder if you're not eating the right foods. And so tell us a little bit about maybe even your daily routine, some of the things that you eat to help maintain your beautiful, vibrant, good health.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so, I mean, the connection between food and exercise is really profound. It's really amazing, right? All of the kind of pillars of our health, those 4 pillars of health, they're all intertwined. We can't expect one to take care of the other. There's a great quote that says, you cannot exercise your way out of a bad diet. It's just not possible, right? It's just not possible. And one of the kind of biggest stressors in our lives is bad nourishment. So if you are dealing with what feels like a really stressful time, or that you're under a lot of stress, one of the best ways that you can help alleviate stress in your body is to eat well. Because that is one of the only forms of stress in our life that we actually have total control over, right? There's a lot of stress in the world, externally, that we don't have a lot of control over. We can learn how to deal with it. We can learn how to not internalize it, but it's going to be there. But the stress that we have total control over is the food that we eat. And that can be a huge stressor on our body. So it really is. I love that you brought that up. It's so critical. It's so critical. So I like to say that I have, and this actually kind of goes across all areas of health, but definitely relates to nutrition, that I have some non-negotiables, things that just, if I maintain my non-negotiables, I know even if, excuse my language, the shit hits the fan, I will be fine, right? I will make it through, I will maintain, and I will feel good, right? So when it comes to nutrition, those for me is I start every morning with lemon water, because it's a great way to get the right pH balance in my digestive tract, all the way from my mouth, all the way down the system, right? You haven't eaten anything for a while. You wake up dehydrated, hopefully, because you've slept through the night and you're not drinking a bunch while you're sleeping, right? And so it's a great kind of first thing. It's nice and warm. It's the temperature of your internal body. And what's interesting is our internal system goes from acidic to alkaline, like all the way down, right? It alternates as it goes through our digestive tract. Lemon water helps to create that balance right from the beginning. It gets your digestive juices going in a way that helps to then digest whatever food comes next better. And it makes sure that your intestines are doing the right things. Your stomach is set up for that with really good stomach acid, all of that kind of stuff, right? So it's a really beautiful way to start your day. So that's one of them. The other non-negotiable that I have is that every meal is a well-balanced meal, right? We require all 3 of our macro food groups, our carbohydrate, our protein, and our fat. Now, there are good choices and not so good choices in all 3 of those categories, right? So that again is a different topic, but I make sure that every time I eat, I have a healthy protein, some good quality carbohydrates, because that's going to give me energy, right? My protein is going to help me build muscle and have strong bones. The carbohydrates are that's going to give me my energy. And the fat is literally food for our brain, right? Our brain is it's like 65% fat. And if we don't have healthy fat in our diet, we are starving our brain. And nobody wants to do that, right? So fat also has other important, in transmitting good nutrients and things like that. But I like to point out the brain because most people don't know that their brain is a majority fat and that it's really important for our diets. So I make sure I have all 3 of those in my diet. And the third non-negotiable is that I give myself a fasting period every day. Some people will call it a fasting period, some people don't, but at least 12 hours, 12 to 13 hours every day where I am not consuming calories. And that happens overnight. And what that means is that there is an end time for when I am consuming calories in the evening. It keeps me from snacking. It helps me sleep better, right? It translates to all these other really positive body processes when I do that. So those are my 3 non-negotiables when it comes to nutrition. And that helps me elevate my energy. It helps my brain think more clearly, which gives me the motivation and the drive to move my body and to be energetic and engage in life. I mean, like you were saying before, right? It just all cycles together. And how important is it to feed our physical body in a way that allows it to feel good when we're moving it and getting that exercise.
Wow, that was so great. I love that. And I think it's important, I didn't learn that I could have non-negotiables in my life until I was grown and having gone through some things that I wish I had had some non-negotiables that were like there. I would have enacted them and moved away from some things a lot quicker. But, even with that being said, so many of us don't put in place those non-negotiables for our own health. We'll do that for others' health sometimes. But there's the whole thing too. We as women, we're typically the ones responsible for providing the food and the direction of exercise and things like that, not just for ourselves, but for our families as well. And when we don't have that structure and that commitment to discipline for our own selves, how do we do that for our kids? And then, we're looking at this, how do I shift things for my kids? We've been in this cycle for so many years. They're used to, their habits are not necessarily the best habits. And how do I kind of step into that space, not only change some things for myself, but also impact and affect change on my family? And I've heard and I've experienced it where a lot of women in particular end up doing their own things because the family is not budging out of this previously unhealthy habitual state, and she's trying to change, and it feels like it's a chore. It's tough to do, and then it's tough to do to have the family come in. What are some ideas that women might be able to employ that can help them ease that somewhat?
Yeah, I love this. This is actually something I work on all the time with my clients because it's true. If we're going to be really successful on our health journey, we can't be butting up against those individuals who are most important to us, who are in our daily lives, right? Like we can't. If we're butting up against that all the time, we will give up because it is exhausting. It's exhausting, right? I never want my clients to have to make 2 dinners, one for them to eat and one for their kids to eat. I have a mentor of mine who's just like, there should be no kids menus anywhere in the world. Like you go to other countries, there's no such thing as kids menus. It's like, it's an American thing. Why we feed our children anything differently than what we eat is beyond, right? It just doesn't make sense. So, and I think this is true again, kind of any area of health that you are looking at. So the first thing that we really dive into, and it's a hard conversation to have. So I'm going to just kind of brush over it and I'm going to invite anyone who's listening to just let it percolate, right? The first thing that we need to do is to really own what is most important to us, right? We could develop kind of our ideal scenario, right? But piecing out what are the non-negotiables is so useful because it gives you something to really stand on, right? I have non-negotiables when it comes to my morning routine, when it comes to my evening routine, when it comes to my exercise routine, when it comes to my stress maintenance, and when it comes to my eating habits, right? I have non-negotiables everywhere. Not a lot. It's usually 1 to 3 things in each category, right? That are just really important for me. And If I am consistent with those, that's where I'm setting boundaries with my family and saying, these are the most important things to me. If the other stuff doesn't happen, that's okay. If sports are getting in the way, or I need to do something differently in terms of, grocery shopping, or, whatever it is, schedules are unpredictable, that's okay. But these things are my time. They're for me. They allow me to be a much better mom and a much better wife than if I didn't have them. And because I'm so consistent with that boundary, my family has no problem with it. If I'm wishy-washy about the boundary, well, it's okay if I give them up sometimes. Or this happened, I don't really need to do it anymore, right? They don't believe me because they see that I'm not being consistent with it. And so they're not going to hold me accountable in a sense, right? They're going to say, well, you didn't do it yesterday, Mom. Why do you have to do it today? Right. And so the more consistent I can become with that, and the more clear I become about what those non-negotiables are, the more success I'm going to have. The other piece of that is as they see me having success. And this was very true when it came to nutrition in my family. When they see me having success, then they little by little, not consciously, but unconsciously come along for the ride, right? If I look back, I've been married for, it'll be 20 years, right? So if I look back that 20 years, the way that we ate 20 years ago, very different from how we eat now. And I made the shift first. And, my husband kind of came along a little bit here, a little bit there and whatnot. Now he eats exactly the same way that I do, right? And if you asked him, he never made that choice. He just did it because it started to feel good for him too, right? And so why would he eat any other way? Because it just doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah.
And so kind of owning that for ourselves, a lot of times I find, and this is the hard part of the conversation, that we expect pushback from our family. We expect it to be difficult for them. We put those expectations on them. And so then what happens? They show it right back to us, right? That's what we get.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually our perception of what we think is going to take place that makes it take place. And so if we present ourselves, if we approach it from a place of empowerment and a place of conviction and a place of determination, it's fine. It's fine, right? It's like it's like it's self-sabotage at its finest, right? Where we are expecting it to be difficult because there's something actually inside us that's nervous about making the change, right? It's our own internal fears. And so we're using, and this is the part that really freaks women out, we're using our family as the reason why we shouldn't make those changes, right? It's self-sabotage at our finest. So that's why I work with women so much on that internal conversation about really standing in their power, knowing that health journeys, when we're doing them right, they can be uncomfortable sometimes. And that's okay. I always tell my clients, when you feel kind of like, oh, can I really do this? Right? When you have a little bit of that discomfort, celebrate it because it means you're on the right path. It means you're going the right direction. If everything in life feels comfortable, you're not on the right path, right? We should be feeling some of that discomfort because it means we're growing in the right way. It means we're expanding. It means we're really digging into what we need and what's beautiful for us and who we are, right? All of those things. That's not supposed to be comfortable conversations. So let's get uncomfortable. It's fine, right? That's why we get support. That's why
Mm-hmm.
we have each other. That's why we have mentors, so that we can get uncomfortable and still feel safe and
Mm-hmm.
still feel like this is something that I can do.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that was amazing. And yeah, I have no words. Thank you for that. Oh my goodness. And what a great way to wind down our show. And as we're wrapping up, Kia, is there any additional wisdom that you'd like to impart to our audience that you know will could potentially make a positive impact in their lives?
So my biggest thing, that if you hear nothing else from our conversation today, the thing that I want everyone to walk away with is this idea that you don't have to do it all and you don't have to do it perfectly. Just find one thing to do and start there. And it doesn't matter what area of health it is in, because all the areas of your health are connected. This is why I call it whole life health, right? We are one interconnected being. We are not bits and pieces stuck together, right? So no matter where that one step comes from, just one thing to just start doing for yourself every day. That's it. Just start there. Do not feel like, oh, I've got to address my nutrition and my exercise and my sleep. No, 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 no. What is one thing, right? Start with one, and then watch as that has the ripple effect, and that can help the shift in your momentum, right? The shift in that law of physics that we all kind of are part of, right? And that how it helps you to get into motion with everything else.
That is beautiful. And I love the concept. I helped to create a program called Just One Thing for Health. And I love that, just one thing for you, for your health. And it just has that ripple effect. And Kia, thank you so much. You've brought such great wisdom and insight and stories to our show today, and I'm so grateful for that. I know that what you have to offer is so amazing. I want our audience to know that you can find Kia's LinkedIn profile link at the bottom of this video and reach out to her, ask your questions, let her share more with you. I wish we could have done, twice the time that we've spent here today. And that just says that I have to have you back and continue the conversation and maybe explore some other subjects that relate, because there is so much and there's a lot of information out there. It's tough sometimes to figure out what the best avenue is for you to explore to get the information that you really feel as though would satisfy what you're looking for. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this show, so that you have some of those options for uh, pathways to credible information and resources and people with the heart that you want them to have as they are helping you, and you're helping in the bigger ripple effect of healing the world. So thanks for joining us today, Kia. I so appreciate you.
It was so wonderful to be here. It was an amazing conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. And to our audience, I want you to make sure that you like us on Facebook, follow us everywhere, turn on your YouTube subscription and notifications so that you know when we're doing these shows. And you know that 222 on Tuesdays. Find us, or at least 222 Eastern time on Tuesdays, and it'll be whatever time and whatever time zone in the world you might be, but do join us, because we've got some exciting things coming up in future episodes, and you'll be able to find the replay of this episode on our page as well as on our website. And so for now, until next time, thanks, be well, live, love, and be a bigger positive impact maker in your world. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.